The greatest maritime disaster in human history didn't occur during a violent hurricane. There were no massive waves or blinding rainstorms. On the night of April 14, 1912, the North Atlantic Ocean was almost perfectly still. Earlier that week, the RMS Titanic departed Southampton on her maiden voyage. At 269 meters long, she was the largest moving object built by humans, and on board were more than 2,200 people, a floating city of millionaires, merchants, and immigrants, all traveling toward America. The confidence in her survival was rooted entirely in engineering. This diagram shows the ship's lower hull, which was divided into 16 separate watertight compartments. The public and the press widely believed this structural redundancy made the vessel virtually unsinkable. Above the waterline, passengers were completely insulated from the freezing ocean outside. First-class guests enjoyed luxurious dinners under crystal chandeliers, while music filled the lounges. The environment inside was engineered to feel like a high-end European hotel. The machinery worked flawlessly. The weather was pristine. The sinking of the Titanic was a mathematical certainty triggered by 3 specific cascading failures. The first failure began in the ship's wireless room. Throughout the day, operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride were overwhelmed by wealthy passengers paying to send personal telegrams back to friends in New York. If you look at this visual representation of the incoming data, you can see the problem. The sheer volume of outgoing passenger messages created a massive backlog. Because operators were focused on clearing this queue, several critical navigation warnings from nearby ships reporting massive ice fields ahead were delayed. Captain Edward Smith did receive some of these warnings. He adjusted the ship's course slightly further south, but he maintained the Titanic's near maximum speed. While this seems reckless today, large passenger liners of the era regularly maintained top speeds unless conditions became obviously dangerous. The communication network designed to keep the ship safe was jammed by human convenience. They were sailing directly into a hazard zone blind. As evening fell, the environment itself turned hostile. The temperature dropped below freezing, the sky was completely moonless, and the sea lost wave action. Normally, as this diagram illustrates, sailors spot icebergs in pitch darkness because ocean waves crash against the ice. This collision creates a high-contrast ring of white foam that stands out against the black water. But tonight, the sea was like glass. With zero wave action, there was no white foam. The dark shape of the ice blended perfectly into the black ocean. High up in the crow's nest, lookout Frederick Fleet scanned the horizon. At exactly 11:40 p.m., the camouflage finally broke, and an enormous iceberg appeared directly in their path. He rang the warning bell 3 times. The perfect stillness of the Atlantic acted as nature's camouflage, leaving the bridge with almost zero reaction time. First Officer William Murdoch immediately ordered the helm hard over and commanded the engines to reverse. The crew executed the orders flawlessly, but physics offered no escape. A ship of this size possessed far too much momentum to pivot out of the way in seconds. It wasn't a violent head-on crash. Instead, the massive iceberg slid along the starboard side of the hull. Deep inside the ship, passengers felt only a slight vibration. Many simply went back to their card games. Below the waterline, the reality was very different. The ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, inspected the damage and completed a rapid series of calculations. Returning to the hull cross-section, the math was clear. The Titanic was specifically engineered to survive severe flooding. If seawater breached 4 front compartments, the ship would stay afloat indefinitely, but the ice tore open 5. As the 5th filled, the immense weight pulled the bow down, allowing water to spill over the bulkheads into the ship. At this exact moment, with the stars shining and the orchestra still playing above deck, the Titanic was already lost. Andrews informed Captain Smith they had less than 3 hours. The crew began uncovering the lifeboats, exposing a fatal oversight. This chart compares the 2,200 people on board with the total lifeboat capacity. The ship carried only enough small boats for roughly half of the passengers. Because of outdated maritime laws, this severe deficit was entirely legal. Panic slowly set in as the angle of the deck grew steeper. Deep below, the engineering crew stayed at their posts, keeping the electricity flowing so passengers could see the lifeboats. Above them, the ship's orchestra continued performing, trying to bring calm to the chaos. By 2:20 a.m., the stress on the steel became too great. The hull broke apart, and the two sections vanished into the freezing Atlantic. Over 1,500 people were left plunged in water below 0 degrees Celsius. The rescue ship Carpathia arrived just before sunrise. They found only the lifeboats. Around 700 exhausted survivors were pulled from the ocean. The sheer scale of the death toll was directly tied to a dangerous assumption, the belief that humanity had engineered a vessel so perfect that worst-case scenarios no longer applied. The news shocked the globe and forced an immediate reckoning. Investigations led to strict new international laws. Ships were now required to carry a lifeboat seat for every single passenger. Radio rooms were mandated to be staffed 24 hours a day, and international ice patrols were established to monitor the Atlantic. Today, the wreck sits nearly 3,800 meters below the surface, untouched by sunlight. The story of the Titanic endures because it demonstrates a timeless warning. Even our greatest technological achievements can be undone in a single night by a cascade of small human errors and the quiet, unstoppable power of nature.